when I was a little boy, my father bought me a glove, and I fell in love with baseball. And when I got drafted out of college in Eastern Michigan, I signed, and I went to my first spring training with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I wrote a letter to my mother that said, my God, there are guys here that are 29, 30 years old still playing in the minor leagues. I'm going to play 3 years. If I'm not in the big leagues in 3 years, I'll go back to college and finish and move on with my education. 55 years later, I'm still in the game. That's what passion does to you.
How you doing, Met fans? That was Terry Collins this past weekend when TC was inducted into the Michigan Baseball Hall of Fame. We'll have more of that induction in just a bit. Welcome to another edition of the Terry Collins Show, presented by Tunnel the Tower, supporting America's greatest heroes. Donate just $11 a month by going to t2t.org. That's T2T.org. I'm John Arezzi. The Mets are on the road, and so is TC's back in New York for some appearances and a special event. He'll be back with us next week. But today we will highlight that induction into the Michigan Baseball Hall of Fame. And later in the show, we'll share with you the full interview that Laura Albanese conducted with Terry earlier this year, highlighting his illustrious life and career. So stay tuned for that. But as we typically do, we cover the Mets, who are on a roll right now in the middle of their best road trip of the year. So to do that, we bring on our lead insider. She's the Mets beat writer for Newsday, an SNY analyst, and co-host of the very popular and growing longtime caller, first-time listener podcast, and now we can say guest analyst in the radio booth, heard on 880 AM WHSQ, Odyssey Mets Radio, Laura Albanese. Laura, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be back.
Yeah, it's been an exciting week for you. Some really cool things happening, and so you're a week now removed from not your debut, but kind of your first series on the road, actually being in the booth with Keith. So I want to talk about that experience. You were in the booth for the Cleveland Guardians series for readers of Newsday, and we do have some photos of that actual article that you wrote, that column. You gave a great play-by-play of the experience, and I welcome everybody out there to find it online, or if you get the digital version of the paper. Now that you've been had even more time to digest this, Marsh, put up that first picture again, if you can. Reflect on the experience, and if it's something you do again if called upon.
I mean, it was such an incredible experience. I did write about it in the column. I'm not the type of person. I did not go to broadcast school. I essentially only focused on print journalism. So all of this is a brand new world for me. Doing the color commentary for 9 innings is something I have never done. The most I've done is I've popped in for an inning for the Newsday top of the fourth, or back when we would do it for Yankee games as well. So a lot of it was just kind of like baptism by fire. Like, I asked everyone I could. I asked Keith Raad. I asked Ray Martell. I asked Howie Rose. I called Eddie Coleman up, like anyone and everyone. And like, just what tips can you give me? How can I do this? And it was definitely a learning experience, but I feel like I got a little bit looser as the 3-game series went on, and it gave me such a different sort of appreciation for baseball. I love listening to baseball on the radio. I don't think you're ever as locked in as when you are just every play and you're trying to describe everything. And it really, really was a fantastic opportunity. I can't say enough good things about Keith Raad, who was doing play-by-play, and Chris Metchkowski, who was the producer engineer.
So they helped you, walked you through everything, and it was a good experience.
It was 100% an incredible experience. If they ever need an emergency backup, I am willing and able.
So you certainly would do it again. And in the column, you wrote about, as a youngster, how you often went to sleep with the radio underneath your pillow, listening to the great Bob Murphy on the radio calling games. So this had to be a bit surreal for you as well.
It was. I mean, even growing up, I did not expect to be in sports. I know, like I'm not of an older generation, but still my generation, there were just not a lot of women in sports that you could look at. So yeah, I was a news reporter, and I enjoyed this kind of like this is my own little special thing. So to be able to do it now, it is like in no world, in no capacity did I ever dream that this could be possible for me when I was a kid. But I'm so glad that they gave me the opportunity.
Yeah, the truth is, years ago, as you mentioned, there weren't a lot of women in the space. It was kind of dominated by men, and now we're finding more and more of that changing finally. And you have great colleagues that you have wonderful relationships with, not only here in New York but around the country. So you got to be really happy with things that have finally changed and what was typically certainly a male-dominated business like baseball.
Absolutely,
things
and
are
radio
changing.
in particular. Like think about, I only found out that I was only the second woman to ever be on Mets radio.
Wow.
Susan Waldman in 1993 called a game. She called one series in Houston, and that's it. So, like, to hear that, I'm like, man, Susan is such a trailblazer. She just is incredible.
Yeah, I love listening to Susan, and she's one of the best, and always has been out there. And I am so happy that you had the opportunity, and we'd love to have more of you whenever the opportunity arises for you, because you did such a great job, and I was happy for you. And then I think on social media, when you and I spoke offline, you said that you almost got a little emotional seeing what the response was from all the followers you have, primarily on X. That's where kind of your strongest following is. But when I was reading the comments of, all of the people that you admire and respect, who they were, giving you flowers, and all the fans, and it had to be heartwarming for you, and it had to be, it had to make you a bit emotional.
I mean, I'll be honest, I started on Twitter when Twitter became a thing, and it's not always the nicest space.
No.
Or even like, it can be a little bit sexist. It can be a little bit harsh, but by and large, people were pretty kind to me, which I did not expect. But what I loved was kind of like the sense of connection of just like, oh, you used to listen to the baseball broadcast with the radio under your pillow too. Like that feeling of just that baseball community, which is something that I've always enjoyed about the sport.
Yeah, I when I was a kid, I did the same, and I do remember one night, it was in 1968, I think it was in May, the Mets were playing the Houston Astros in Houston, and the game went 24 innings. I didn't go to school the next day.
Pre-pitch clock too, so you were there for about 7 years.
They lost 1-0.
Oh, 24 innings and 1 run. Ow.
Yes, but Bob Murphy, Lindsey Nelson, Ralph Kiner were the ones that put me to sleep. At night I'd listen to the games, and of course watch the games on WOR back then. But those memories of putting that pillow, putting that radio underneath, so you don't rouse your parents and get scolded. But that was a thing for me. But I'm happy you had that experience, and also it seems like you brought the Mets a little luck in that series. They swept.
I know.
They won 6-2, 6-5, and 13-6. So you got to see a Mets offense that might have been the best they've been all year.
Yeah, it was their first sweep on the road this year, and only their third sweep overall. Did not expect that. I know the Guardians are a light hitting team, but they also defend really well. They're great pitching, and the Mets offense kind of exploded. It was interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's been a kind of a feast or famine road trip for them. They have one more game left. It's been the best road trip of the year, winning 3 against Cleveland, 2-3 against the Pirates. And now, depending on tonight's game, they'll either go 7-2 and 6-3. Not bad for a club that has seen a complete overhaul of the bullpen.
Yeah.
It's crazy. They're playing great baseball. What observations have you noticed over the last week that could encourage Met fans going into the final month and a half of the season?
I mean, there have been a few things. I've enjoyed the better quality of the bats. I think one of the things that a lot of fans were frustrated with, and I know Carlos Mendoza was certainly frustrated with early in the year, was just like these guys pressing at the plate and not playing to their strengths. Unfortunately, part of that has to do with the pressure is off. That's not necessarily good news, but you do kind of want to get people to get into a groove. I think I've mentioned this before. You never want to get complacent about losing. And the fact that they are kind of putting this together, especially with so many young guys that they have on the team, I think that's encouraging. I think seeing Bo Bichette look like Bo Bichette is hugely encouraging. And then like every time you see like a Christian Scott, a Zach Thornton who's pitching today, a Nolan McLean, all these young guys, you're like, okay, this rotation could be legitimate if once again they manage to get a frontline starter at some point in the offseason. And the two big things are guys that are going to be here next year, most likely. Sean Manaea, looking like the Sean Manaea of old. The uptick in his velocity on the fastball is a huge deal.
You look great.
And I am so intrigued by Kodai Senga in the bullpen.
Yeah, actually, I was just going to get to that. That bullpen, you know, obviously the complete overhaul, nobody is there. And then Devin Williams, you know, he had this arm fatigue, and then he came in for one game, and now he's on the IL. And, you know, that could be very cryptic when you hear that anyway.
Yeah.
Especially with him. And it kind of is. And I guess we'll know more in the upcoming days. But you wrote about Kodai Senga in another one of your columns this week, that maybe the time is now to give him that shot in the closer role. And with the injury to Williams, it seems like not only the logical thing to do, but also a necessity, because there's nobody else. Luke Weaver is gone.
Right.
Talk to us about Senga, and if this could be a possible resurgence for him, knowing that the Mets have him already signed for next year.
Yeah, so obviously Senga wants to be a starter. He's always wanted to be a starter, but he did get his, start in Japan in the bullpen. First, he did long relief, and then he started getting accustomed to high leverage situations. So, I mean, this is twofold. One, if you could turn Senga into a real bullpen weapon, he has a repertoire for it.
Yep.
Because when he's going in these shorter bursts, he can dial up the fastball to 100 miles per hour. He's got the forkball, and you can do very, very well as a high leverage closer with two really good pitches and maybe like a sweeper or something else thrown every once in a while.
Well, he still does that, but those pitches are always balls. He should just really focus on those two pitches.
Right. And like, if you do that, it turns out suddenly he can find the strike zone, which was a big deal.
Yeah.
So I do like him as a closer. And one of the things I had written about, and one of the things that even he acknowledged, was kind of like the psychological factor of pitching. And sometimes, even though it is a high leverage situation, and then, it's all down to you almost don't have time to get into your own head. And I'm wondering if this is maybe a factor for some of his success, that he's just able to go out there and perform. So I like it in that regard. If he does, end up being a starter, all this can do, if he has sustained success, is help his confidence. And confidence is extremely important. Anything you can get from Kodai Senga is going to be an extra added bonus at this point.
Yeah, and, you kind of feel good for him, but he's got to, have that mentality, and he does seem to be the person that always overthinks everything. He's always analyzing. He's in the dugout when he's starting, even like not even sitting and resting, but he's never relaxed. But if he could just focus on what this role is at this point, it could really prove to pay a lot of benefits for him, especially if he has that opportunity in 2027. I was happy to see him in that role, and I do miss Luke Weaver, but you got to turn the page now. He's not here anymore. Yeah. But Senga, another thing that was really cool was at the end of the game when he got his first save ever. Carson Bench actually threw the ball into it. They gave it to a fan in the stands, and at the end they're just showing Alvarez. They're like, "Where's the ball?" But they got it back. I understand.
They did get it back. I saw the picture, which was hilarious because they met Senga in exchange for the ball.
What a great picture that was.
There are guys in a Mets jersey. There's someone in a Phillies jersey. There's someone in a They had the entire NL East. Kodai Senga. It was funny.
I know. Yeah, that was kind of a ragtag bunch of people that it was like, what is this? And they have Senga there, and then but he gets the ball. He gets that ball, the first save that he's had. So I'm very happy for him. All right, Laura, moving on to the outfield and the curious case of Luis Robert Jr. And I was going to talk to you about this topic today, but lo and behold, when I opened up my digital version of Newsday, you had a column about Luis Robert Jr., which was great. So I'm going to just talk to you about that. He is he is someone that obviously David Stearns probably tried to move and just couldn't get any return for him. So he's here. And David was saying how exciting it could be for the rest of the season. But in your insightful column today, the headline, I don't know if you write the headlines. I'm sure there's a headline writer. Yeah. Mets need clear head of Robert. Picking up option of fragile outfielder makes no sense. You wrote about what the rest of the season looks like with Roberts playing more often now that he's healthy, and what role he has this season and the option the Mets have for him for next year. Expound on that. Give us your assessment on what the Mets should do with him the remainder of the year, considering A.J. Ewing is a much better choice in center field.
Yeah. So, I mean, for the one thing, they do kind of need Robert right now because, I mean, what is the point of bringing back Juan Soto and putting him in a position where he can get further injured? Maybe they will bring back Juan Soto a little bit towards the end of the season, but there's no reason. There's no reason to rush him. Just let the guy rest. But you need an outfielder. Luis Robert, when he is healthy, is a very good defensive outfielder. That being said, he's only ever played center field, and that is A.J. Ewing's spot. And I do like the fact that Andy Green was pretty clear. You know, the Mets have always been like shuffling people back and forth, which is I'm not enamored with. But Green is like, listen, we're going to get Luis Robert comfortable, have him have a few games under his belt in center field, and then we're going to try to move him to the corners. And his reasoning was, I think, sound. He's like, A.J. Ewing right now there is no detriment to having him play a few games in left field. But eventually, we want him established in that position. So, I mean, like, for me, this is like very low risk, a good amount of reward. Luis Robert is excellent defensively. I think he'll adapt just fine to left field once he gets comfortable. And then you have to figure out what to do with him next year.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, it's a $20 million option, team option, or if they don't pick up the option, they still got to pay him $2 million.
Right.
So what do you do? And does the rest of the season? But you know, if I'm rolling the dice, if I'm heading the team, it's like he's injury prone. He's still got the disc situation that could rear its ugly head, and he'd be forced out. Maybe he needs surgery somewhere down the road. You don't know with back stuff. You know, that's very volatile. So, you know, I would get the most you can get out of him this season. And then, as you pointed out in your column, maybe it's a renegotiation if you bring him back for next year.
Yeah, because I feel like with Luis Robert, and granted, he had down years in 2024 and 2025, but a lot of that he said, and I'm going to try to take him at his word, is that, you know, lack of consistency. Because when you look at just the tools itself, this has all the makings of a very talented player. And we saw that in the years prior to that. But not worth $20 million because no matter how good you are, it doesn't matter if you actually can't make it to the field. So, I mean, for me, buy him out for the $2 million. If you can drag his price down, which given the lack of interest at the trade deadline, you probably can. Yeah. Then maybe this is, especially if he's good at the corner outfield positions, then maybe this is someone you can bring back in that capacity. Because again, he has that pop. He has that kind of ability to wow you when he is playing consistently. So if you're not giving up that much, I know people don't want Luis Robert back. I'm not completely against it. And part of it has to do with it's a pretty weak free agent class. I even wrote in the article, I'm still like, bring back Tyrone Taylor. I
agree with you on that. He was the best fourth outfielder. They're you know, the Mets just, they gelled well together. He performed great in the field, and his bat heated up better than we'd ever seen it before. So who knows? But that's
he wants to be in Flushing. That is very important.
That's the other thing. He wants to be here. So that could be a good free agent signing for the Mets at the end of the season, depending on what happens in Chicago.
Yeah.
But it's been an interesting road trip for sure. I want to bring up one other topic with you today. Your friend Mike Puma of the New York Post had a great column today on Francisco Lindor. I don't know if you had a chance to read it. I'm sure you probably
skimmed it. I got the bits and pieces, but I didn't read the whole thing yet.
Yeah. So I think it was, Francisco talking directly to him. I don't think it was a press scrum or anything.
No, it was a one-on-one.
It was a one-on-one. It was a good one-on-one. It was
Yeah.
probably the most pointed comments from Lindor that I could recall since 2024, to be honest with you. Lindor, I think he made some newsworthy comments in this column. He said he wants to remain a Met, and he plans to be here for the remainder of his contract, which was great to hear him say that. He said when he signed the agreement, it was for not only the good times, it was for the bad times. And all he wants to do is win. So I thought that was good as well. He also then said that Steve Cohen, quote, is one of the best owners in sports history, end quote. So he said that. David Stearns is the right guy. And his optimism really starts with the rookies, Carson Bench, A.J. Ewing, and Nolan McLean. It was some refreshing viewpoints from Lindor. Your thoughts? I know you haven't read the full article, but him coming out like this to Mike?
I think I feel like Lindor has felt this way, but maybe sometimes it's necessary to say it out loud, to say, okay, I truly still believe in this, because it can be very easy to look around that clubhouse right now and see where you're at as a team and be like, oh, we're not just in a bad situation right now. The doom and gloom can kind of set in, even when you have like little bright spots. But to have a guy like Lindor, like obviously the rookies are really exciting, but full-throated support of the president of baseball operations, full-throated support of the owner, dedication to staying here, I do believe him. And why I think that's impressive is because, even speaking to Lindor over the course of the season, where it's just like, this has been probably the most challenging season of his career, or among the most challenging seasons of his career. He's not an injury-prone player. He spent a lot of time in the IL. And to have someone like him basically stand up and say, if things are bad, I want to stick around when things are bad because it's my job to make them better. That's the type of leadership you want in a team. And while Lindor is certainly his own type of leader, I don't think he's naturally very vocal. I think sometimes he's been shoved into that position where he's had to be local and put everything on his shoulders. But it is still kind of nice to hear that from the guy in the room, from the guy who's been there day in and day out through the very high highs and the very low lows.
Yeah, I totally agree. And he also mentioned the core of him and Soto, and combining that with the rookies and Bo Bichette, which he said he doesn't know if he's going to stay or go, gives him optimism for the future. So that was great to hear. He put just about everything over. He put everybody over in the interview with Puma. Like he was talking about Simeon, and he really expounded on it, and it was refreshing to read in print today. And maybe this was his way, as you kind of alluded to, a little bit of stepping back a little bit more publicly in a bit of a more forceful way about leadership, and him coming out to say these things at this time. I thought it was really good, and the timing was perfect for it. So I really enjoyed his comments to Mike Puma, who's another excellent writer and one of your colleagues over at the New York Post. And you guys had a fabulous little post-trade soiree
We did.
On your podcast last week, which was kind of cool. So we
had 15 minutes, and we're like, all right, let's do 15 minutes where we just talk about how the trade deadline goes. And it was fun.
You did. So we always appreciate your time here. Your podcast, it's just so cool. There's so many different topics that are brought up. And just the banter with you and Cole back and forth make it a very entertaining listen each and every week. And I listened to the new one this morning, and the Mexican adventures of Cole, and then of course you go into the
oh my goodness.
Timeshares are a nightmare when you are. And when you get into one of those and you don't know what you're going to get until you get there. I get offers from vacation clubs all the time, and I know what it is once they get you, because they're not going to let you go. It's the hardest sell out there.
It's ridiculous. There's even a subreddit of people trying to get rid of their timeshares for like pennies on the dollar.
Oh, there's a company that my entertainment attorney also represents, and what their company does is get people out of timeshares.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, it's like almost impossible because they lock you in and your family's in, and it's generation. It's
how does this be a generation? I don't know how we got on this topic, but timeshares, don't do them, people.
Don't do them. Don't do them. No. Anyway, Laura, it's great to have you here as always. Tell everybody out there where to read you, where to find you, and hopefully you'll be back on SNY Baseball Night in New York sometime soon.
I will be there tomorrow, so I will.
Oh, excellent. So let everybody know and where to find you.
Sure. You can read my stuff at newsday.com/Mets. You can find me on X at Albanese Laura. I will be on Baseball Night in New York on Thursday, and you can also tune into my ridiculous podcast, which is also very fun with my co-host Cole Critchell. First-time listener, long-time caller.
All righty, Laura. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your week.
Thanks.
Always great to have Laura Albanese on with us, and I tell you, her columns are just so fantastic in Newsday. So if you haven't had the opportunity, she really is so insightful. So always a pleasure to have her here. I want to tell everybody about our presenting sponsor, Tunnel to Towers. They keep busy as the 25th anniversary of 9/11 is only less than a month away now, and they're working so hard, and there's so many things going on with what they do each and every day. More than 100 veterans struggling to find stable housing will soon have a new home. The Tunnel to Towers Foundation is opening a brand new Veterans Village in Memphis, Tennessee this week, August the 14th. Tunnel to Towers Homeless Veteran Program is committed to eradicating veteran homelessness across the country. Just last month, a Veterans Village was dedicated in Charleston, South Carolina. The villages provide not just housing, but a full array of services to help vets adjust to civilian life. You could help these veterans in need by donating $11 a month at t2t.org. And the motto of the Tunnel to Towers Foundation is, "Let us do good." That's also the title of Frank Siller's new memoir. Frank and his siblings started the foundation after their brother Stephen was killed on 9/11. Stephen was a New York City firefighter who ran through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel to the Twin Towers, where he lost his life. Since then, Frank has turned Tunnel to Towers into the nation's premier nonprofit for veterans and first responders. His book is a personal account of his family's loss and their commitment to doing good in their brother's name. You can learn more about the book and the foundation by going to t2t.org. If you're able, please donate $11 a month at t2t.org. And the Tunnel to Towers Steel Across America tour is winding down. Since May, the foundation has been bringing a 21-foot steel beam across the country. The column was recovered from the remains of the Twin Towers. It's been an emotional journey as people have had the chance to touch this sacred artifact and reflect on the heroism and sacrifice of 9/11. For more on the Steel Tour, go to t2t.org. You can help Tunnel to Towers on its mission to do good by donating $11 a month at t2t.org. That's t2t.org. And we're going to be back to discuss the induction by our own Terry Collins this past weekend into the Michigan Baseball Hall of Fame right after this word from Mets Hall of Famer John Franco on behalf of the Tunnel to Towers Foundation.
On 9/11, the team was in Pittsburgh when the plane hit the World Trade Center. Born and raised here. You know, this is my home. It's like a punch in the stomach. Coming down here on the ground zero, we weren't sure if it was the right thing to do, but we wanted to help any way we can. When there's a building on fire, most people are running out. These guys are running in. And for us to bring a T-shirt or a hat to them, you know, they saw us, they smiled, they thanked us for coming down. It made us feel good about that. We put a small Band-Aid on a big wound.
They fought for us. They sacrificed.
I know Frank Stiller, who started this Tunnel to Towers, and what they're doing around the country is an amazing job. I take my hat off because they are giving back. They're paying the mortgage off for the houses. Policeman who got shot, who lost his life. The disabled veterans, they're making handicap accessible homes for them. This is an amazing organization.
Go to t2t.org for more information about how your donation can make a difference.
A very special weekend took place for Terry Collins this past Friday. TC was back home in Michigan for his induction into the Michigan Baseball Hall of Fame. Terry was inducted into the hall with the ceremony taking place at Jackson Field in Lansing. We show you some of the photos here if you're watching on our YouTube channel. These photos are courtesy of the Michigan Baseball Hall of Fame, and we'd like to thank Jesse Goldberg-Strasser and Courtney for sending us these photos and video you saw at the beginning of the show. TC got to speak to the media throughout the first pitch, and he signed lots of autographs for the fans in attendance. And we're so happy to see TC was there with his lovely wife, Deborah. The plaque that he was awarded as the induction for the Hall of Fame simply reads, and you could take a look at it if you're on our YouTube channel, Terry Lee Collins, Eastern Michigan University. Terry Collins was a three-sport star at middle and high school before focusing on baseball at Eastern Michigan University, leading Eastern in stolen bases each season from 1968 to 71. In 1970, Collins helped propel EMU through a thrilling run to the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletes, the NAIA, National Championship, and he earned the honor of Outstanding Defensive Player of the tournament. Following his playing career, Collins managed 13 years in the major leagues for the Houston Astros from 1994 to 96, Anaheim Angels from 1997 to 99, and the New York Mets from 2011 to 17, winning the 2015 National League pennant. Terry Collins, class of 2026. A great honor for our own TC, and as we wrap up this segment, we share with you some local media TV coverage of Terry's big day. And following that, we're going to show you in its entirety, for the first time, the full Laura Albanese interview with TC about his life in baseball in a special Talkin' with TC.
4 new members were inducted into the Michigan Baseball Hall of Fame. Bob Sullivan, Bob Welch, Connie Wineski, and Terry Collins are the new inductees. Sullivan established the League Baseball in Grand Rapids. 249 of his players went pro, with 76 reaching the majors. Bob Welch went to Eastern Michigan. He was the 20th pick in the MLB draft in 1977 by the Dodgers and spent 17 seasons in the MLB. Wisniewski earned the nickname the Iron Woman, playing for the Grand Rapids Chicks in the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. And lastly, Terry Collins from Midland, Michigan is the only living inductee and led Eastern Michigan in 1970 to the NAIA National Championship. And following his playing career, he managed for 13 years in the majors, and he was thrilled to receive the call telling him about his induction.
2 weeks ago, I was at Cooperstown, and I saw how those guys were impressed with what they, the honor. Well, I had the same honor being here, being from Michigan, being associated with all these guys whose names are on this plaque. I've spent 55 years of my life in baseball, and to be honored for it, because I didn't ask for anything. I just did my job as hard as I could, and to be rewarded for it is really cool.
Good evening. The Michigan Baseball Hall of Fame inducted 4 new members into its ranks tonight at Jackson Field in Lansing. 3 members inducted posthumously: longtime Major League scout Bob Sullivan of Grand Rapids, All-American Girls Professional Baseball League pitcher Connie Wisniewski, and former Dodgers and Athletics pitcher, 3-time World Series champ, and 1990 Cy Young Award winner Bob Welch. The only living member inducted tonight, Midland native and Eastern Michigan alum Terry Collins. Collins spent more than a decade as a Major League manager with the Houston Astros, LA Angels, and New York Mets, winning the National League pennant with the Mets in 2015. Collins told me tonight, though his baseball career never brought him back to Michigan after his college days, he remains a proud Michigander and was honored to be recognized tonight.
To be able to have these people still remember that I'm from Michigan was very cool. And when I got the phone call, the first question was, why? Because, my career was other places. 2 weeks ago, I was at Cooperstown, and I saw how those guys were impressed with what they, the honor. Well, I had the same honor being here, being from Michigan, being associated with all these guys whose names are on this plaque. I mean, it's special. I've spent 55 years of my life in baseball, and to be honored for it, because I didn't ask for anything. I just did my job as hard as I could, and to be rewarded for it is really cool.
So I'm Laura Albanese, and I'm here with Terry Collins. We're going to talk a little bit about baseball and a little bit about life. How are you doing?
I'm good, Laura. Thanks for coming out on our another beautiful day here in Florida.
It's absolutely stunning. I've really, really enjoyed spring training so far. And I've enjoyed talking baseball with you. I've always wanted to know, I mean, like, where did your passion for baseball get started?
Well, I mean, I started when I was a little boy. I mean, my father was a real good athlete. He was originally from Toledo, Ohio, and went to Midland, Michigan to play fast pitch softball for Dow Chemical Company. And it was a small town, and Dow wanted to have something to entertain the people, so they put this fast pitch softball team together, and they ended up winning the national championship a couple of times. And so my dad was a very good basketball player. He went to college, to play basketball before the war came up, and so I just was born and raised in sports, and I loved to play them all, and just it so happened that baseball was the game that helped me the most.
What was your team growing up?
Tigers.
The Tigers. Okay,
I was from Michigan, and so I was a Tiger fan. Of course, that was back when the Yankees were winning most of the championships. But so I knew all about the Yankees also. But my guy was Al Kaline, and in my life, I mean, how many times are you blessed to be able to go meet your hero?
When'd you meet him?
Well, I met him in spring training one year, and we talked, and then before that, I had been introduced to him in Detroit when I went in when I was in the American League.
Mm-hmm.
Al was out there, and somebody introduced me. But then the next spring, I got to talk to him, and then the following spring, when I was managed with the Mets, Al actually came over to the visiting dugout during batting practice, wanted to say hi to me, and I'm thinking, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, like you're coming to me.
Al Kaline's coming over to say hi to me. Yeah, so that's what pro baseball is about. I mean, the relationships you form and the people you get to meet. I mean, to this day, I have breakfast with Sandy Koufax once in a while. So, for heaven's sakes, can't get better.
I mean, it's just such a cool journey. But you're playing in high school. You're doing all these things. At what point do you think, okay, maybe this is a career for me? Like, this is what I can do.
Well, I had played in my hometown. I had played with a couple of guys who had signed,
Mm-hmm.
who played minor league baseball, and it was coached by a guy who had played minor league baseball with the Red Sox, and learned a lot about how to play the game with some of those guys. And and I started to get a little older. Some guys that had played some minor league ball were on these adult teams that I was playing with. So, and when I went to college, I played in some of these college summer leagues where all those guys were going to get drafted. A lot of them had been drafted.
Yeah.
And had not signed or didn't want to sign yet. But so that was kind of when say, hey, geez, maybe I'm going to get a chance. If I'm good enough, maybe I'll get a chance to play. And fortunately, I got a chance to get drafted and signed, and I was only going to play for a few years if I didn't get to the big leagues. And I wrote my mother a letter when I was my first spring training. I had met some guys in camp with the Pirates that were 29 and 30 years old, that still never been to the big league, still playing minor league baseball.
Yeah.
And in the letter I wrote my mom, I said, I'm going to play for 3 years. If I don't get to the big leagues, I'm going to go back and use my education. 50 years later, I was still in the game.
Oh, what was your major, by the way? What were you going to do if you didn't?
Well, I was in education.
Okay, so
I majored in sociology, and so I would end up probably teaching phys ed. But I love sports, love to coach, and so there was a time, Laura, when I was playing in the minor leagues where I said, I want to coach this sport. And so I'm going to learn what every position is. And again, I was very, very fortunate to be in an organization. I was with the Dodgers at the time, where in spring training, you're having, dinner with Maury Wills, Koufax, Don Drysdale, Wes Parker. So there wasn't a phase of the game. I used to sit out back when Roy Campanella was still alive. There was a place called Campy's Corner, and he used to take the catchers at night and talk catching in his wheelchair. And I mean, where else could you get that kind of education?
That's incredible. So, I mean, at what point when you're in the minors, are you like, okay, you talk a little bit about that transition to managing. I mean, what was that transition like for you, and how did that kind of come about?
Well, I had played, years and years ago, before there was minor league free agency. If you were in AAA, you were just hoping that somebody would get hurt so you could get so you could get called up and get some time. But I was with the Dodgers. They had the same infield for 12 years, so there was no place to go, and I played with Ivan DeJesus, Jerry Royster, Bobby Rand, all guys who played in the big leagues, but we were just kind of stuck there.
Yeah.
And so Rafael Landestoy was one of my teammates for a long time. And so, you were kind of, so there was a time when I said, okay, I'm probably not going to play in the big leagues, but if I get the chance, I sure would like to maybe try my hand at coaching.
Yeah.
And so in the minor leagues. And so I just got a chance. The minor league director, his name was Bill Schweppe with the Dodgers, for some reason liked how I went about things and offered me a chance to be a minor league manager in the California League in Lodi, California. And the rest was history.
Was there anything that surprised you about kind of like doing that transition when you're finally managing and you have like these guys surrounding you, probably not that much older or younger rather than you are?
Well, I played my last couple of years in AAA. I was what they call the player coach.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I played for one of the great baseball minds that I've ever been around, named Del Crandall. And Del had managed in the big leagues. Of course, he was a great big league player. And when I got into this position, he said, first thing you have to understand is you got to stop worrying about playing.
Yeah.
So don't take any batting practice. Don't be out there taking ground balls. Be able to learn what it's like to be a coach. So, I started throwing a lot of batting practice, and I can't tell you, I think 2 years in a row I got activated in the middle of the season and hadn't had any batting practice. So, you go out and you hit that one morning and you're playing that afternoon. So, but that was the game back then. And so you ran with it, and it helped me as I went down the road to other people who wanted to get into the coaching side.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Green is a perfect example. And so, but if I took what I learned, and hopefully it's helped some other guys who end up being major league coaches and managers.
Is there anything about your playing style that kind of translates to your managerial style at all? Like, what type of player were you? And I mean, people know what type of manager you are.
Look at me. I'm 5'7". I weighed 145 pounds, 150 pounds. So in order for me to compete at the level in professional sports, I had to play harder than anybody else.
Right.
So there was never a time in all of the years I played that somebody said, hey, you got to run that ball out. There wasn't a time I didn't run a ball out. There wasn't a time I didn't come out and do what I had to do for to help the team win. I knocked second baseman down, and I was the second baseman. And I knocked the guy down one day, and he looked at me, he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm just playing the game. He said, well, you know what? I'll be coming into you one of these days too. I said, well, that's the game.
Right.
That's what you got to do. And so, and if I backed down from it, I would have been out of the game a long, long time ago.
What gave you that confidence, the ability to be like, all right, maybe these guys are bigger, maybe they're stronger, but I can do this?
I was pretty good.
Yeah.
I was athletic.
You're good.
I could run. I was one of the things I could run, and I could catch it.
Yeah.
Back then, guys like me, if we hit the ball in the air, we got released. So we had hit the ball on the ground, hit line drives, get on base. I had one year when I was managing in the major leagues, I had a player say, geez, when you played, how did you hit the breaking ball? And I said, they didn't throw me breaking balls. I was a little guy. I didn't have any power. They threw the ball down the middle. They said, we're not walking you. Here, hit this. And so, so
use your strength.
Exactly. And that's what they did. They didn't walk little guys that didn't have any power. Everybody said, well, you got to take pitches. Yeah, well, counts 0-2 before you could blink.
Right.
Because, everybody pounded the strike zone back then. So you had to play the game right. And that's what I thought I did. I thought I played the game right. And when I got into coaching and managing, I wanted that same effort out of my players.
Yeah.
So, and not everybody's the same. There are people that turned off by the intenseness that I had to have to do my job. And I understand that. That wasn't that I didn't like them, but I just thought there was a way to play the game. And I've always said, I've told the players, anytime I've given a speech, the one thing I wanted when I was managing is when a father would take his son to a game and watched my team play, that he left the stadium and he'd tell my son, that's how you play.
So, I mean, like those first couple of years managing, I mean, what was that like for you? I'm guessing it wasn't hugely profitable. I'm guessing it wasn't always easy.
I didn't make any money for a lot of years.
So, yeah.
But it was a passion.
Yeah.
It was the love of my life, and that was what I wanted to do. So, with my first year, we won the California League. We were finished, I think, in our division last in the first half, and that was when Fernando Valenzuela was on the cusp of being a star and the screwball. And so the great Jim Brewer, who was a great Dodger pitcher who threw a screwball, came to Lodi because he was going to teach the screwball. And he saw my team play, and he said, well, we're going to scrap the screwball. What we're going to do first is teach these guys to throw strikes with their fastballs. And I used it 50 years later, the same statement. You learn how to command your fastball first, and once you do that, the rest of the stuff will come.
Yeah.
And we won. We ended up winning the second half, won the championship. And the next year, they moved me to Vero Beach in the Florida State League. It's Sid Fernandez on my team, and you know, we got beat by the Yankees in the playoffs. But again, we had, you know, because my teams played the game right.
Was there anything that you learned about yourself, or those early lessons of being a manager that you kind of like carried through your career?
Well, there's a ton, but you know, it's who I was. I mean, I demanded a lot of myself.
Yeah.
One of the things, you know, when I trained my team to get ready for a game, and we didn't play well, I thought it was my fault.
Yeah.
That I didn't get them ready. And so a lot of times I beat myself up over it. And I've had guys tell me, hey, look, you know losing is going to be part of it. You're never going to win all your games. But as long as I thought we were prepared to play and went about things, that I was okay at getting beat. But it's when we didn't play we missed cutoffs, and, you know, you didn't back up a base, or, you know, didn't move a runner along. That to me was my responsibility.
Right. Because you're supposed to teach these guys to do everything.
To do it right.
To do it right.
And that's for years. And I wanted to win.
Yeah.
And I wanted to win bad. And I told Al Campanis, the general manager of the Dodgers, one year, he told me, he said, quit worrying about winning so much. And I said, well, what I'm trying to do is produce winning type players.
Yeah.
And if you learn how to win in the minor leagues, and you do the things that you win in the minor leagues, and I know talent's the most important thing, but if you play the game the way it's supposed to, when you get to the big leagues, you're going to help the Dodgers win, and that's all I cared about.
Has there ever been a player that you could see that impact in a profound way, like a guy that maybe in the beginning was not working or not doing things, but then kind of like came around to the idea? Because sometimes you have super talented players who don't necessarily go about things the right way.
Oh boy, that's a tough one. That'd be going way back to, but I had, you know, I was really lucky, because one of the things Walter Alston told me about managing, he said, you will find that your players will take on your personality if you do it the right way.
Yeah.
And so I kind of thought that's how my team went about things. You know, and I had some great guys, I had really some talented guys, but I also had some guys who loved to play.
Yeah.
And those were those extra guys that you have, especially at the minor leagues, that, you know, if you're going to win, those guys play in the minor leagues. You know, you only had 21 guys, and 10 of them were pitchers. So, you know, everybody had to play.
Yeah. So, so you're in the minor leagues. You finally get your first major league job. How did that come about?
Well, I was with the Dodgers for a number of years, and I managed the first AAA All-Star game in Buffalo, New York.
Okay.
So the owner of the team in Buffalo was Bob Rich was trying to they were talking about trying to get a major league franchise. So they were promoting their team quite a bit. So Bob was there when I gave the speech to the AAA All-Stars, the National League team, and he thought, that's the guy I want managing my team. So the Pirates called, and I took the job to go manage in Buffalo after being with the Dodgers for 23 years.
What was in the speech?
I don't remember, but Bob liked it.
Okay.
So I got to Buffalo, and that's where I met Jim Leyland.
Okay.
With the Pirates. And Jim had a similar, you know, experience with the Tigers. You know, Sparky was the manager of the Tigers, and Jim was their AAA manager, and there was no spots for him. And so Tony La Russa took him to Chicago, and Jim wanted to be a Tiger forever, as I thought I'd be a Dodger forever. But the best thing I did was to get to meet him. And so one year, and Laura, I don't remember exactly what year, but they locked the players out in the beginning of spring training.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran the spring training for the Pirates, and Jim was in camp. And when they brought the players back, Jim came to me one day. He said, "Look, I don't make promises to anybody, but the next job on my staff is going to be yours." And the next year, Gene Lamont got the job with the White Sox, and Jim took me to the big leagues.
What was that working in, relationship like, and just that relationship with Jim Leland?
greatest.
How did that form you?
The
as a
greatest,
person?
the greatest. I learned so much from him, how to handle players, and the biggest thing, Laura, and you're sitting right here, when I got to the major leagues with Jim, he called me in the office. He said, "Here's your job. You're going to throw batting practice to Bonds, Bonilla, and Van Slyke.
Mm-hmm.
Then when the game's over, I want you to sit over in that corner over there every night and listen to what the sports writers, when they come in, what the questions they ask and how I answer them. Not that you have to answer them like I do,
right,
but you need to learn the questions that you're going to face." And I did it every single night for 3 years.
All right. So how did you learn to deal with the menaces that are the media?
Through him.
Through him, yeah.
Honest.
Yeah.
Answered every question. Didn't attack anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like he used to tell me, he said, "There's be some questions that don't make much sense because there'll be a young reporter that really doesn't know baseball. Treat him like," he said, "you treat every single reporter as if he's the sports editor for the New York Times." Never forgot it. Remembered it to this day. And so when I got to New York, I dealt with the sports.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a true story. There's a guy named Tyler Kepner.
I know Tyler. Yeah.
So Tyler Kepner was a beat guy when I was the manager with the Angels. He was with one of the newspapers out in California, and sure enough, a few years later, I get the job in New York, and Tyler Kepner's reporting for the New York Times.
And you kind of establish those relationships.
Exactly.
Throughout.
And you treat people with respect.
Yeah.
Again, I've told every reporter I've ever dealt with, you're allowed to have an opinion. That's fine. Just don't tell a lie.
Yes.
Don't make something up that's not true. And that's my only issue. And you're allowed to have there's lots of times when game's over, I've said, maybe I should have did that. But has never been a time during a game where you don't think of all your options. Hey, I could do this, I can do this, or I can do this. And now you got to formulate something to say, okay, I really think this is my best opportunity.
Yeah.
That's where that bench coach, your pitching coach, all come into play. You listen to opinions. There's probably guys a lot smarter than me. I know there is, but I use my people. I'm a big people guy. I think, you hire good coaches and you use them, you let them do their job, and then you formulate what the best plan is for your team.
So I was looking, I know you manage the Astros, then you have the Angels and then the Mets. I mean, what among those three teams, what's the highlight of your career? What are the things that you look back on and kind of like, okay, this is something that I'm going to remember forever?
My first game in Houston. Mm-hmm. My first was my team. I'm standing, on the first baseline in Houston, Texas, and saying to myself, it's all been worth it. Yeah. All the bus rides, all the winter balls, all the instructional leagues, everything I ever did along the is paid off. This is paid off. And so that was huge for me. And then obviously standing on the third baseline in Kansas City during the World Series. That's the ultimate goal of every kid who's ever played baseball in his backyard, was to be a part of a World Series. And here I am, my team playing in the World Series. Can't get better than that.
Was there ever a time where you were like, you've been counted out a few times in your life in terms of, okay, maybe he's a little bit undersized to be a baseball player. He has to start from the beginning to be a manager. Was there ever a time you doubted yourself that you'd be able to do it?
No, because when when you can't come through the minor leagues, and that's the thing. I managed in A-ball, I managed in AA, I managed 9 years in AAA. I managed winter ball. I won winter ball. We won the Caribbean Series when I was in the Dominican. I had major league players, stars, George Bell, Tony Fernandez, Jose Rijo. We had great players that, you've got to deal with these guys. And I remember I had a manager tell me one time, don't ever forget, everybody wants to be led at some time. Okay?
Yeah.
Even though they're talented, even though they're great players, they want someone to help them down. And if you can be that guy, if you can be there when that happens. And so that's how I approach managing. I just, and again, there were times, you had to take had to forget about your ego and everybody else's. And so I think all of those experiences in winter ball, when I finally got to the big leagues, I thought I could deal with these guys.
Yeah. And so, like, after the Angels, you went to Japan, right? what led to that decision, and just how did that form you? What was that experience like?
Well, was the minor league. I got the job to run the minor leagues for the Dodgers, which I loved, and I was also the field coordinator. So I had 2 jobs, but I had great assistants in Los Angeles. It took care of all the office stuff. So I got to go out and watch the players, and that's when, at that particular time, Bobby Valentine was managing in Japan, Trey Hillman was managing in Japan, Marty Brown was managing in Japan, and so we had an international scouting department, and the guy who ran it, AC Kurogi, came to me and he said, there's a Japanese team that's looking for an American manager, and they would like to talk to you. And I said, all right, I'll talk to them. So I flew to Japan. I was in the instructional league, running the instructional league for the Dodgers, and I flew to Japan and interviewed with them one night at dinner, and they offered me the job at the end of dinner. And I said, I'll call you in a couple of days. They said, no, we need to know right now. Now.
Your entire life,
right
just
now,
like that?
Right now.
What did you do?
I said, okay. So we talked about a contract and took the job and came home and finished the instructional league, and a month later flew back to Japan.
What, just the immersion into this new culture, what was that like for you? Because we always talk about ball players who come in here and they have to, immerse themselves, and that's hard. But as a manager from the United States going to Japan, like, what's that like?
Well, so in Japan, every fall they have a camp, and I think it starts November 1st.
Okay.
And so I went over there November 1st and watched the players. Saw what they could do, how they go about things, watched how they trained, talked to Bobby, called Bobby. He gave me some tremendous information about, hey, look, there's going to be, don't try to change too much.
Mm-hmm.
This is how they do it. And I got to tell you, it works. He said a lot of it works for them. And so, again, I watched, and I wanted to change a few things in how we approached the game and how some of the things were done. But that's why they asked me to come over there. And so that was a really an eye-opening experience. And to this day, it's one of the things that's I've always been kind of surprised at with with Bobby and I. We've been over there, and so the Japanese players are starting to come over here, and nobody ever asks our opinion of them.
You think they would?
Well, and again, because I know how they prepare in Japan to play.
Yeah.
And one of the things they do is they work hard, and if you cut their workload down, they don't think they're ready to do things sometimes. So, but it was a great experience, and I loved being over there, but it was time to come back.
Yeah. Did you learn Japanese?
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Yeah. Okay.
Bobby took Japanese. He could speak it.
I've heard Bobby speak Japanese, and I was like,
yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. He took, and I should have also, but I had an interpreter who was, I thought he slept outside my hotel room all the time.
So you talk about just the managerial experience of doing it in Japan, but just living there, what was that like?
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
What was your favorite part of it?
It's great culture, great food, very respectful, very clean. It's incredible. They could dig up a sidewalk and you'd never see any dirt. Damn. It's gone.
Yeah.
And it's fixed. It gets fixed now. And so, that stuff I love. They traveled right. They treated their players great. Great fan bases everywhere. Beautiful ballparks. So it was fun.
So right after Japan, that's the Mets, right?
I came back from Japan. Omar Minaya called me, and they had let Willie go, and had Jerry Manuel was the manager, and he said, look, I'd like you to come and not be the minor league director, but be the field coordinator in our minor leagues. And I'd known Omar a long time. Matter of fact, when he was the scout in Texas, I was managing in winter ball, and I wanted to take other players. I didn't want to take just Dodgers because, they think they got to, because you're one of their guys. So I wanted to take some different, so I took Texas Ranger players. So I got to meet Omar. We became very good friends. Another guy who really helped me in winter ball. So he wanted me to be the field coordinator, and I got the job and took it, and came to camp, and again ran the minor leagues, which is one of the things that I thought I could do pretty well.
Yeah.
So, and the next year I got the managing job, so it all worked out.
Were you surprised at getting the Mets managing job?
Yeah, very.
What was that? Can you tell me a little bit about that experience and how that, like, what those conversations were like?
Well, I had resigned in Anaheim, and so I didn't think I'd ever manage again.
Really?
That. Yeah. So outside of going to Japan, and that's why I went to. One of the reasons I went to Japan is because I missed that action. I missed that competition side. So when I came back and got the farm director's job, I was in Arizona watching the Arizona Fall League when Sandy Alderson became the general manager, and called me and wanted to talk about the minor leagues. And when we were there, he asked me if I had any interest in possibly managing again. So I said, well, of course. I mean, I love managing, and so. I got interviewed for that, and I got a second interview and a third interview, and when he called and he said, "Hey, we'd like to offer you the job as the manager of the Mets," I was in heaven.
I can't imagine. You think it's never going to happen again.
Exactly.
And then it's the biggest market.
Biggest market. But fortunately, I had great people behind me, and him being the number one guy.
Yeah.
And his backing and how he, there wasn't, we talked every single day. And, I listened to what he had to say, but he let me do my job. Yeah. And that's, and I'm not criticizing anybody because I'm not in the clubhouses today, but, we'd talk about lineups and I wrote them.
Yeah.
And he'd make suggestions and I still wrote the lineups what I thought was best. And I respect him to this day for letting me do my job.
When they did hire you, do you know exactly what made you such an attractive candidate to them? Did they say, okay, we like this and this about you?
I do not. I never asked.
You never asked?
I never asked. All I know is I got the job.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, I got the job. But I will tell you this. I did say to myself when I got the job, have some fun with this. You know what? This is going to be maybe your last, because I was getting older. It's maybe your last shot. Enjoy it. The other times I was, so intense that I kind of forgot to enjoy it myself.
Yeah.
And so I said, I'm going to enjoy this, and I did. And that was, and again, Laura, you got to look at who I had in that locker room when my first day. I got Wright, Santana, Reyes, Beltran, Pelfrey. I had not only good players, good people. And so, I made sure that I used those good people.
Yeah.
For my advantage, and they helped me a lot, and that's why I formed a little group of 5 or 6 guys to let them make the rules. Okay, therefore I didn't have to worry about policing them; they policed them, and it made all the difference in the world. And so my relationship with my players in New York was probably better than it ever was anyplace else.
I mean, those years with the Mets, obviously, they had a huge impact on the franchise. What were your favorite memories from that? What were some of the things that you really stand out?
Well, I had a player win the batting title.
Yep.
I had a player win the Cy Young. I had a player pitch a no-hitter.
Sure did.
I had a player, 7 All-Star games, and, made him the captain. Went to the World Series, had the best young pitching staff in baseball. Watched the Matt Harveys, the Jake DeGroms, and the Noah Syndergaards develop as pitchers. Dan Murphy took a guy and put him at a position he never played before, and obviously in 2015 had maybe the greatest playoff series of anybody. Those are the things I'll never forget.
Yeah.
And again, I attribute it to the fact of the kind of people they were, because that talent's, if you're in the big leagues, you got talent.
Yeah.
It's how you apply yourself to get that talent out, and these guys applied themselves. I mean, we don't have time for me to tell you the stories of, these guys and how they went about getting ready to play a game, or how they, in spring training, I mean, they got ready to play. And so, again, as the manager of those kind of guys, I've said it for a long time, there's a lot of guys, you have to have a manager probably, but there's a lot of guys who don't need managers.
Yeah.
A
guy like David Wright.
A guy like David Wright.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think he's going to get ready to play. Of course he is. Matter of fact, the one thing you don't want to do is interrupt that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you had to make some difficult decisions as a manager. Obviously, the Johan Santana no-hitter being one of them. I mean, all these years later, how do you reflect on that?
Well, my stomach's not as upset as it was for a long time, and that's due to my conversations with Johan. But again, as I've said so many times, I knew his importance to the organization coming off surgery. but I also knew him as a person, and he deserved that chance.
Yeah.
He'd earned that right to be out there, and I couldn't take that away from him. So even though I knew that was a wear and tear on his arm, it also was one of his golden moments in his game, in the history of his career.
Yeah, I mean, if he says, I want to stay out there, what can you do except a man like that?
Yeah, and Laura, again, I go back to, and I'll tell this quick story, but when I was the field coordinator here, Jerry, big club was going on the road, and Jerry Manuel asked me to stay back and help, pitchers, they were working out, the guys weren't going on the trip, and they were doing a drill, and Johan stopped the drill. Now there's probably 10, 12 of them out there. Stopped the drill, and he said, if we're out here, let's do it right. Let's do the drill right. That's why we're here. And you know what? The better we do it, the quicker we're going to get off the field. There's no reason to be out here playing around. This is business. He could have pitched for me forever. And so I knew the kind of guy I had.
Yeah.
And so those kind of guys, they've earned that right to have something special.
Right. I mean, it's a little bit reminiscent of David Wright as well. I mean, he's going through all of this with the spinal stenosis, and he's fighting so hard to get back. As a manager, what was that experience like? And then,
well, that was heartbreaking because he was such a talented player. When you started to see how it was starting to affect him a little bit, but he never stopped. Still came in, still smile on his face, still loved. And Laura, his respect for the sport, which includes the fans, the media, his teammates, it's off the charts. And so, he earned any opportunities that I could provide for him, when he came back that day in Philadelphia. And that story I tell is an absolute truth. He walked in my office. He said, I'm so glad to be back. He said, look, you guys are playing great. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. He said, if you want to play me, you want to hit me eighth, I don't care. I do not want to disrupt what's going on here. And that's a true story. And that's the day I said, well, guess what? You're hitting third tonight. And what does he do? Hit a home run his first time up.
Yeah.
That's him.
I mean, how does that feel as a manager when you see that ball go out?
I can't. The thrills. I get goosebumps today about thinking about it.
And 2015, obviously an incredible season, but didn't end the way that you wanted it to. How do you look back on that moment?
Well, it's just part of the games, but there's a lot of things that led up to it. But I will always say this, and I think it's kind of fulfilled what's happened. We had all those days off. We were red hot. After we swept the Cubs, we were red hot, and then we sat for 5 days. And you cannot replicate the energy level. You can't do it. I don't care what you try to do. I guess maybe if we gave free tickets and we could have filled the stadium for practice, I don't have any idea. But you just couldn't do it, and all of a sudden that just sapped some of our adrenaline that we had, and we just never could recoup it again.
What did you love the most about that season? Because I mean, Mets fans look back on that season with a lot of affection, obviously.
One of the things that I look back on, and I through the podcast with John Arezzi, I asked Sandy Alderson, what was it that you said about that team that you said, you know what, we're going to go get some help here, because that turned that entire season around.
Right.
We started bringing in, before Cespedes, when we brought in Juan Uribe, Kelly Johnson. These are quality major league players. Juan Uribe's got a World Series ring. Kelly Johnson, I don't know if he was at the Braves when but he was a good player. And so and then you bring in Addison Reed and Tyler Clippard, and the names kept coming up. And with each name, you'd walk in the locker room, and the other guy's eyes are going like, "Holy cow! Hey, they think we're pretty good."
Yeah.
The front office is saying, "You guys are pretty good here," and so you just saw that, that confidence start to grow in the clubhouse. And then when we got Cespedes, I mean, it just, they said, hey, look, and I go back to Fred, Jeff, and Saul for stepping up, and Sandy for saying, look, let's give it a shot. Let's give it a run.
It's interesting that you say that, the idea that you can actually imbue confidence into a clubhouse just by being like, oh, the front office actually thinks we can do this.
That's right. And I'm telling you, this game's about confidence. I don't care what your role is on a team. If you believe in yourself and when you get hot, that's why I said, I don't need any numbers to tell me when to play a guy and when not to play a guy. When they get hot, they're playing.
Daniel Murphy,
Jay Bruce, David Wright. I mean,
Lucas Duda had some good.
Lucas Duda, another great name. When they're swinging the bats good, they're playing. I don't care who's on that mound; they think they can hit them.
Yeah.
And so, and that's that's what the game's about. And you bring that into the entire lineup, the entire clubhouse, where there's 25 guys or 26 guys in there that say, hey, we're good enough to win. And that's what I'm telling you. Some of those comeback games, I swear to God, Laura, you'd sit on the bench and you'd look down that bench and you'd say, we're going to win this game. Yeah. We might be behind by 5 runs. We're going to win this game.
Do you see that in teams these days? Like, do you ever get a moment, like even the 2024 Mets, where we're just like, oh, they're down, but maybe they can kind of like come back because of the guys.
Because they know they can.
Yeah.
So they don't get all caught up and we're losing again. They say, hey, look, let's keep doing what we've been doing. Let's get good pitches to hit. Let's put good swings on the ball. Let's make quality pitches, and it all ends up paying off.
You had, you had some pretty phenomenal pitchers too, and they were obviously very young. What was it like, peak Matt Harvey, and then, hey, this DeGrom kid is pretty good?
Well, obviously, when I had Jake, he didn't throw hundreds, but he was really good because he pitched. I remember days where he didn't, game 5. All he kept doing was making pitches. He didn't get frustrated because he didn't have his best stuff. He made quality pitches. He wasn't afraid to miss off the plate because he just said, well, I got to throw this down the middle because my command's not very. He kept making pitches. Before Matt got hurt, I don't know if there was a better pitcher in the game.
Really?
This guy took the mound, and you're talking about a guy who attacked people and tremendous guy and great stuff. And then we call up a young guy named Noah Syndergaard, who sat on the bench and asked all the right questions. So Jake would be pitching, and he'd throw a pitch, and Noah would say to Dan Worth and the pitching coach, so should I throw my slider in that situation? Ask all the right questions. So when he took the mound, he was ready.
Yeah.
And even though he had the great arm, but again, we taught him to get, Dan taught him the two-seam fastball to get easier outs. So instead of trying to strike somebody out on 7 pitches, you got him out on 3. So all of a sudden, instead of going 5 innings, he's going 7 and 8 innings now. Still throwing 100.
Still throwing 100.
Steven Matz, another guy, brought him up. Good command. There was time, and I used to leave my apartment in Long Island City and going to the ballpark, and my thoughts were, all right, we're facing Gio Gonzalez tonight from the Nationals. I got to figure out how to score 3 runs tonight because they're not scoring 3. It's a pretty good feeling.
That's a pretty good feeling. It did feel like you had this great confluence of just like hard workers and actual like thinkers, like guys who pitched.
They competed against each other. You got 5 of the best young pitchers in baseball, and you know what? Matt throws a 2-hitter or a 3-hitter. Jake wants to throw a 2-hitter. You know what I mean? And that inner competitiveness. And if you saw it, as there was a time when Jake would throw a sideline, and the other 3 guys were sitting. They're all there watching him throw his sides. So now they know what he's doing mechanically, and so during a game in house, they can hey, look, you're starting to get out front, or you're different things because they paid attention.
It is, but it's interesting. You said before that sometimes teams take on the manager's personality a little bit. It did feel like that 2015 took on your personality.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
In terms of intensity.
Yeah. They about the intensity, yeah. And I tell you, that run in September, unbelievable. And when we got into playoffs, we're playing a pretty Dodger team. We're pretty good.
Yeah.
And that when we won that first game, I said, I think we're gonna win this playoff. And I remember after, it was pretty fun. We split in LA. We go to New York. We win the first game. And I'm in the outfield the day before, or on that game, on game 3, and I, because my time with the Dodgers, I was the farm director when we signed Clayton Kershaw. So I'm talking to Clayton, and I said, "You pitching tomorrow?" And he goes, "Oh, they haven't told me yet." I said, "What are you talking about? You're pitching tomorrow."
Clayton Kershaw.
Of course you're going to be pitching tomorrow. So, and those are, again, that was, and I said, we got to get ready for this. Well, it's just, again, And of course, Murph was red hot, but it all starts with, we held him down. Jake came in, pitches great. Noah comes in, strikes out Justin Turner. I got asked Jerice to go out there for 2 innings, probably for the first time all year.
Yeah.
And those are what they did. They just stepped up. They took what was asked of them and they ran with it.
What was that team like after the Ruben Tejada injury? How did you react?
Angry.
Yeah.
They were angry. Yeah, it was. But again, there are situations, and you hear it today, Laura, all the time. Hey, it's next man up.
Yeah.
So, when Ruben got hurt, Wilmer got to step up, pal, and did. And because that's, and again, when that confidence, and they have to have confidence in themselves, but their teammates help them.
Yeah.
Hey, look, hey, you're the perfect guy for this situation.
That was a very memorable team. I think that's right. Wilmer Flores almost got traded and didn't come back. Jacob deGrom, all these other things. I mean, so when you look back at your career, I mean, do you feel like that was the pinnacle, 2015?
Yeah. I mean, that's that's, like I said, that's what you play for.
Yeah.
And to get that opportunity to go out there, and and I will tell you what, the 2016 team, Murph was gone, David was hurt. That team, when that run we made at the end of the year to get into the wild card, was incredible.
Yeah.
We got performances out of guys that we didn't expect. Even Asdrubal Cabrera, I know he hit the home run, but if people forgot, this guy played on a bad knee all year. Yeah. Never complained. Never said anything. Just showed up and played, and I thought that run was really impressive.
That was pretty incredible. I do want to ask you this, you've been all around baseball. You're the Forrest Gump of baseball, basically, all over the place. In terms of favorite, do you have any memorabilia? Do you have stuff that you hold on to that you care about?
Well, I used to have a lot. I don't anymore. I kept some stuff that's very important to me. When I was in college, we won a national championship, and I have the bat I used. For that, I've kept that. Of course, my sisters gave me a frame of my father who played softball. So they framed his glove, which, no laces in the fingers and just a little bitty pocket. Mm-hmm. And they won the national championship. So they have in this, what are they called? Shadow boxes is his ring, his glove, and a picture of him making a play. And so that's something I've kept. I've got my championship ring from the Mets. I have got an award after 2015. There's Dennis Gilbert had a thing and so I got the Tom Lasorda Manager of the Year award, and Tommy gave it to me, and so those are just a few things I've kept that
How much of your career was your dad able to experience?
Well, he died. He passed away in 2015, so he didn't get to see the World Series, but he was there for my opening game in Houston, there for my opening game in Anaheim. Did not come to New York, but he was in his 90s then. So, but he, he was always there, and give me a call. Hey, Bo, how you doing?
Yeah.
Like, good game last night, and I knew he didn't watch the whole game. But I think he got a recap from my sisters in the morning. So,
so when did he pass away in 2015?
In February.
In February, so before the season started. How difficult was that going into a season having lost your dad?
Well, it was hard. It's pretty fun. When we swept the Cubs, the game we swept on October 21st, I think it was October 20, would have been my mother and father's 52nd or 53rd wedding anniversary on that night. Mm-hmm. And they had both passed away, and I knew that was, they were there. And so that stuff was big, but, I got to tell my father how much he meant to me before he passed away. And so I was okay.
Yeah.
Because I knew that, that he knew how I felt and how much, that he had done for me and growing up. I remember, one morning when I was a senior in high school, I got up on a Saturday morning, I walked upstairs, and there's a brand new Wilson glove on the table. I didn't expect it.
Yeah.
Never asked for it, and there it was.
He must have been so proud.
Yeah, I'm sure he was. Yeah.
That's lovely. I think that's all I have, unless there's anything else you think I should bring up.
I got nothing else.
Well, Terry, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time. Your career is fascinating, and I love hearing these stories. And
Well, I've had a great life, and I've told everybody I don't have to apologize for anything. I worked hard, and it paid off in the long run, and I've got to be in this situation where I've got to know you, John, Marsh, everybody else. I've got to meet some of the greatest players that have ever played the game, call them friends. I'm a pretty lucky guy from a little bitty town who, at one time, I tell the story about my mother told my father one day that one of the kids I played with's mother called and said that I couldn't play with her son anymore because I played too hard. So my mother told my dad, "You're going to have to talk to Terry." My dad said, "I will." And she said, "What are you going to tell him?" He said, "I'm going to tell him not to play with that kid anymore." But don't change the way you go about your job.
I bet you he's not a major league manager, so there you go. Awesome. Thank you, Terry.
When you watch that complete interview Laura did with Terry back in the spring, it was such a great interview, and Terry shared so much about his life in baseball, what motivated him, some of his mentors, the feeling he had during his managerial career, and what he's doing today. So that was a wonderful interview, and we're happy that Laura was able to capture that with us during that time. So we really appreciate her efforts and reliving that interview with TC. Well, I'll tell you one thing, another busy week for Coach's Collectibles. This week, we're going to start off the segment, first time ever, a rare autograph piece from the man who jumped out of an airplane and parachuted into Shea Stadium during Game 6 in the 1986 World Series. So let's take a look at that video right now.
Boy, this crowd came here to make some noise tonight. And that's one of the many reasons an unexpected guest at Shea Stadium.
The stadium was going wild. I was sitting right there on the first base side in the field boxes, and this was one of the coolest moments when Ron Darling slapped the hand, a high five to Michael Sergio, who was the jumper from that plane.
Literally and figuratively. That's about the only way to beat the traffic in this town. One ball and everybody got a kick out of it.
It was simply amazing. I'll never forget it because I was sitting there in my box seats, and you look up at the sky and like, something's falling out of the sky. What is it? It's a parachuter, and then landing squarely right by the pitcher's mound. And it was one of the most memorable moments of that Game 6, which was could be the greatest game in World Series history. I got a chance to meet Michael Sergio recently, courtesy of Coach's Collectibles, and that was at the 86 reunion. What a great guy. And he gave a speech at the at that banquet that was held out in Garden City. But right now, for the first time ever, available, signed by the man who just dropped into a World Series game, Michael Sergio, the Game 6 parachutist. It's a framed 8x10 photo of that moment. And you go to coachescollectiblesnewyork.com to get your limited edition piece for your Mets collection. Also, new inventory now available of Mets rookie sensation Christian Scott in a series of Gem Mint 10 certified by PSA DNA baseball cards. And there are several different signed cards to choose from that are now available at coachescollectiblesnewyork.com. And this coming weekend, David Wright, there's a private signing with Coach's Collectibles. You could get your items signed by David Wright. DM Coach's Collectibles on their Instagram, send them a message on Facebook, or you can email them at coachescollectibles@gmail.com. And another private signing with Rookie of the Year candidate Carson Benz is going to take place pretty pretty soon here. Get your order in by August the 21st. Carson Benj, a private signing, and you can get your item signed by Carson through Coachs Collectibles. If you get your order in by August 21st, go to their website, DM them on Instagram, or just go to their Facebook page as well. And follow them on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget, when you use the TC Show promo code at checkout, shipping is free. 10% goes to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. And now it's time for another T2T story. This week we feature Elizabeth Harris, widow of U.S. Navy Commander Charles Alfonso Harris, on how Tunnel to Towers changed her life after the loss of her husband. Let's go to those stories right now.
After Charles passed, my biggest fear was, I think, just the unknown. But, we went from 2 incomes to not even 1 at the time, because we had just moved to Florida. I wasn't working. Annika was 11 at the time and Quinn was 6. Annika is built just like him. Quinn is completely extroverted and outgoing like him. And I think for Annika, when her dad died, she was really concerned about how the bills were going to get paid. And she started calling family members, asking if there were any jobs or work that she could do for money to help pay the bills. My dad actually is the one that told me about Tunnel to Towers. I remember the phone call when Laura from Tunnel to Towers called to tell me that my mortgage was being paid off. I stopped breathing, I think, because she was like, "Are you still there?" And I just started sobbing. And I said, "Yeah, I'm still here." Tunnel to Towers paying off my mortgage meant stability. Charles loved serving his country. He loved everything about the Navy. On May 6th of 2021, he assumed command of the USS Howard. On July 28th of 2021, he was pulled off the ship for medical concerns, and we found out that he had stage 4 cholangiocarcinoma, which is gallbladder cancer. They moved us to hospice, and he and I lived in that hospice room together for 5 days until he took his last breath. So perfectly healthy on May 6th and gone by August 28th. Even though he's not with us, he's very present in our lives. Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Let us do good.
Thanks again to Tunnel to Towers each and every week for providing those heartwarming stories for us right here at the Terry Collins Show. And I want to remind everybody you could join our very active community on Facebook. Over 5,600 of you are now there interacting with each other and getting to see some exclusive content there. So go to facebook.com, the Terry Collins Show, and follow us there, because that audience, those likes, those follows are increasing several hundred a week, and there are fans from Met fans from all over the country there. So please go to facebook.com/the Terry Collins Show and follow us there. Our Instagram is also rocking. Close to 11,000 of you are on there seeing and interacting with us. So go to instagram.com and search for @TerryCollins_10. YouTube viewers get to see the video version of this show each week with highlights, clips, and several new videos posted each and every week. And all of our video content is archived there since the debut of the show in 2024. So subscribe now by going to youtube.com/the Terry Collins Show. And if you listen on Apple or listen or watch on Spotify, please rate the show with 5 stars and leave a review. It really helps us out when you do that. That'll wrap up this edition of the Terry Collins Show. Terry will be back next week, and we got a bevy of potential guests lined up. It'll be a very exciting show for sure. So we will be posting on social media once we confirm some of the guests that we've been interacting with. And of course, Terry will be back from New York. We look forward to having him back in front of the camera and giving us his wisdom, his quips, and just him interacting with some of the guests that we hope to have on next week. For Terry Collins, this is John Arezzi. I want to thank you for joining, and have a great week, everyone.